I never thought I would see her again like that, standing in a church, dressed in black, at her husband's funeral, and I never thought the words that would change my life would come from her lips that day, when she looked at me and said, "Don't leave yet." But I am getting ahead of myself. My name is Cal Bennett. I am 28 years old, and I live just outside Denver, Colorado. I have a small 2-bedroom house I bought last year. Nothing fancy, just quiet. I work in logistics analytics for a national supply chain company. It is not exciting work, but it pays well and gives me structure. My life has been calm for a long time. No partner, no pets, no roommates, just me. I used to think I liked it that way. This story started years ago, back when I was in college. I went to Northern Arizona University. That is where I met Mara Keating. She was a year ahead of me, and way out of my league. She was not loud or flashy. She was calm, smart, and naturally beautiful. The kind of person people notice without her trying. When she walked into a room, things felt quieter, more focused. I fell for her hard. Not in a casual way, in a deep, serious way that sneaks up on you and does not leave. It was not just how she looked, it was how she spoke. How thoughtful she was. How she made me want to be better just by being near her. I tried to get closer in small ways, asking her to study together, bringing her coffee once, inviting her to a party. She was always kind, always polite, but distant. She never gave me a reason to think something would happen. Nothing ever did. She graduated before I did. I remember seeing a photo she posted in her cap and gown. She was smiling, standing next to a guy the first did not know at the time. Later, I learned he was her boyfriend. Then her husband. I told myself to move on. I buried myself in work. I finished school, moved to Colorado, bought a house, and built a life that looked fine from the outside. I dated other people, some nice, some not, but something always felt missing. I told myself it was just a college crush I never got over. We were barely even friends, but still, her name stayed with me. Quietly. In the back of my mind. Then, a few months ago, I saw a post online from someone I used to know. It was about a small plane crash, a routine flight that went wrong. At first, I barely paid attention. Then I saw the name. Gavin Keating, Mara's husband. He died instantly, no survivors. I felt the air leave my chest. I had not spoken to Mara in almost 10 years. I did not even follow her online. But I could not stop thinking about her, about what she must be going through, losing the person she planned her life with. I knew I had no place in her world. But I wanted to show up, not to be seen, just to be there. I found out where the funeral would be, a small-town church, about 2 hours away. I took a day off work, wore black slacks and a white shirt, no tie. I drove the whole way in silence. When I arrived, I parked across the street. The church was already full. People were hugging, whispering, wiping their eyes. I slipped inside and sat near the back. I did not talk to anyone. I did not approach the family. She was there. Mara looked older, but still so familiar. Her face was pale and tired. She did not cry during the service. She just sat there, hands clasped, staring straight ahead. Seeing her like that hurt in a way I did not expect. When the service ended and people began to stand, I turned to leave. I had done what I came to do. I paid my respects quietly. That was enough. Then I heard her voice. "Cal." I turned around. She was standing right there in front of me. Same eyes, same voice, just more fragile, more human. "You came," she said softly. I nodded. I did not want to intrude. I just wanted to pay my respects. She looked down for a moment, then back at me. "Don't leave yet," she said. "Please. Just stay a little while." And I did. I was not sure what I expected after Mara asked me to stay. Standing there in that church hallway, surrounded by quiet voices and grief, everything felt unreal. We had not spoken in almost 10 years, and now she was standing in front of me, newly widowed, asking me not to leave. There was a long pause between us. Not awkward, just heavy. People were still moving around us, hugging, saying soft goodbyes. Mara glanced around, then back at me. "There's a place a few blocks from here," she said gently. "It's quiet. We could get a cup of tea or something, if you have time." I nodded right away. "Yeah, of course." We walked to our cars. She drove ahead and I followed. The drive was short, but neither of us spoke. The cafe sat on the corner of an old street. Big windows. Wooden booths. The kind of place that felt like it had been there forever. Inside, it was nearly empty. A couple by the window. A man working on a laptop in the back. We slid into a booth along the far wall. The waitress came by, and Mara ordered chamomile tea. I ordered the same. Neither of us was really there for the tea. At first, we just sat in silence. I kept wondering why she asked me to stay. She finally spoke, staring down at the table. "I didn't expect to see you today," she said. "I wasn't sure I should even talk to you." "I wasn't sure I should come," I admitted. "I didn't want to make anything about me. I just couldn't stop thinking about you when I heard what happened." She nodded slowly. "I'm glad you came. Seeing someone from before all this, it reminded me that I used to be someone else." There was a tired sadness in her voice, not dramatic. Just worn down, I took a breath. "I know we weren't close," I said, "but you mattered to me more than you probably ever realized." She looked up at me then. "I remember," she said quietly. "You used to leave little notes on my desk in that philosophy class." I smiled, surprised. "I didn't think you noticed." "I did," she said. "I just didn't know what to do with them back then. I was focused on grades, internships. I had tunnel vision." I nodded. I did not want to drag the past into the middle of her grief. "I'm really sorry about Gavin," I said gently, her lips pressed together. "It still doesn't feel real," she said. "He flew those routes all the time. It was supposed to be routine. One small failure, and everything just stopped." She spoke calmly, almost too calmly. "I keep waking up thinking I'll hear his keys in the door," she added, "but it's always quiet." There was nothing I could say that would fix that, so I did the only thing I could. I stayed quiet. I stayed present. After a while, she looked at me again. "You look different," she said. "You used to be so nervous." I let out a small laugh. "Time and spreadsheets will do that to a person." She smiled, just a little. "What do you do now?" I told her about my job, about my house, about my quiet life outside Denver. She listened closely, like it mattered. She told me about her work too. Remote design jobs. Freelance. How she had not been able to focus since the accident. We talked for almost an hour. The tea grew cold. When she asked if I had anyone in my life, I shook my head. "No, I guess I never found the right person." She nodded slowly. "Sometimes it feels like I lived a whole life with Gavin," she said. "And now I'm back at zero." I hesitated, then asked softly, "Do you regret marrying him?" She looked at me sharply, then softened. "No, not for a second. I just didn't expect life to split itself into before and after." "I don't think anyone is ready for that," I said. When we stepped outside, the sun was low. The street glowed orange. She stood by her car and looked at me. "Thank you," she said, "for coming today. I didn't know I needed it until now." "Any time," I said. "Really?" She opened her car door, then paused. "Cal," she said, looking over the roof of her car, "don't disappear again." That stayed with me. A week passed. Then, another. Every morning I found myself thinking about her, wondering if she was sleeping, if the house felt too quiet. I did not have her number. I told myself it was better that way. Then, one Friday morning, something shifted. I closed my laptop, grabbed my keys, and got in my car. I drove the same 2 hours. This time, I brought soup I had made the night before, and a loaf of bread. When I reached her street, I parked across from her house. No cars in the driveway. I waited. Almost an hour passed. Just as I was about to leave, a blue sedan pulled in. It was her. She looked surprised when she saw me. Then she smiled. "Cal." "Hey," I said. "Sorry for just showing up." She laughed softly. "That might be the nicest thing anyone's done for me all week." Quote. And as she opened her door and invited me inside, I had no idea that this was only the beginning. After that day, I kept showing up. At first it was careful, every other week. Then once a week. There was never a conversation about it. I would text and ask if it was okay to stop by. Almost every time, she replied quickly, "Of course." Doors open. I brought soup, groceries, coffee. Sometimes nothing at all except myself. What surprised me was how easy it felt. We did not flirt. We did not touch. We stayed inside invisible lines neither of us wanted to cross. She talked when she needed to. Other times, we sat in silence. But the silence felt different than before. It was not heavy. It was warm. Slowly, things began to change. She stopped flinching when she said Gavin's name. She started laughing again. Real laughter, not the kind that ends in guilt. One afternoon, we were watching a stupid movie on her couch. She laughed so hard she spilled tea all over her blanket. We stared at the mess, then at each other, and burst out laughing. In that moment, everything felt normal, and I realized something scared me. I was not showing up just to be kind anymore. I wanted to be there. I looked forward to seeing her. I tried not to think about what that meant. One Sunday, she invited me over for lunch, said she was trying a new soup recipe, and wanted an honest opinion. When I arrived, she was barefoot in the kitchen, stirring a pot, hair loosely tied back. She looked relaxed, like herself. We ate at the small table, sunlight spilling through the window. Afterward, we moved to the couch. She poured us each a glass of wine, even though it was still early. She got quiet then, staring at the bookshelf across the room. "Cal," she said slowly, "do you ever feel like your life split in two? Like everything before and everything after?" I nodded. "Yeah, I felt that way when I lost my brother." She turned to face me. "When I lost Gavin, I thought that part of my life was over, that I would never really feel anything again, and then you showed up." My chest tightened. "You didn't ask for anything," she continued. "You didn't try to fix me, you just kept coming back. And somewhere in all that I remembered what it felt like to be seen." I swallowed hard. "I don't want to make this harder for you." "It's not," she said. "It's the first thing that hasn't felt hard." She moved a little closer, not much, just enough. Her hand found mine gently. My heart raced, but I stayed still. I let the moment be what it was. "I used to think love was supposed to be loud," she said. "Big moments, big gestures. Now I think it's just the person who keeps showing up." I took a breath. "I was in love with you in college," I said quietly. "You probably never knew, and that's okay. I never came to the funeral thinking something would happen. I came because I couldn't not come." She looked at me with a clarity I had never seen before. "I know," she said, "and that's why I trust you." She leaned her head against my shoulder for just a moment. I did not move. We stayed like that, listening to the clock tick behind us. That night, I did not stay. I kissed her forehead and drove home in silence. But everything had changed. We still took it slow. Some days she needed space, and I gave it to her. Other days, she reached for my hand without thinking. The first time she did it in public was at a bookstore. No announcement, no hesitation. She just took my hand and kept walking. That moment stayed with me more than any kiss. We never had a talk about being together. It happened quietly, gradually, then all at once. Months later, I asked her to move in with me. I worried it would feel like I was stepping into a life she had built with someone else. But she smiled before I finished the sentence. "Yeah," she said, "I think it's time." She kept a few things. A bookshelf, some art, a chipped yellow coffee mug she loved. We made space together, built something new. One morning we stood barefoot in my kitchen, making coffee, smiling, for no reason. It felt right. We did not rush marriage. But one Sunday, sitting on the porch, I asked, "Do you think we should make this official?" She leaned into me. "I already feel like we are." 2 months later, we were married. Small backyard ceremony, soft colors, quiet joy. We wrote our own vows, but I barely remember what I said. I remember her eyes. And then, 2 weeks ago, she handed me something in our kitchen. 2 lines. She was crying, not from fear, from disbelief. "We're having a baby," she whispered. I pulled her close, my hands shaking. Everything went still. For the first time in my life, the future did not scare me. And that was when I realized this story was not about loss anymore. It was about what came after. It has been almost 2 years since the day I stood in the back of that church and tried to leave quietly. 2 years since Mara looked at me through all that grief and asked me not to disappear. Some mornings I still wake up before her and just lie there, listening to her breathe, trying to understand how life carried us here. After that day in the kitchen when she handed me the test with shaking hands, everything felt new again. Not loud, not rushed, just careful and full. We talked for hours that night. About fear, about hope, about what it meant to start something when neither of us planned it. She told me she was scared. I told her I was too. But I also told her the truth. I had never felt more certain of anything. We took things one step at a time. Doctor visits, quiet smiles, late-night talks on the couch. Some days, the weight of the past still came back to her. She would go quiet, lost in thought, and I knew better than to push. I learned that loving her did not mean fixing those moments. It meant sitting with them. We started painting the spare room across the hall. Soft green walls, warm white trim. Nothing bold, nothing loud. We laughed more than we painted. Got paint on the floor, on our clothes. She stood in the doorway one afternoon, hand resting on her stomach, and said, "I never thought I would get this. Not just the baby, the peace." At night, we talked about names. We did not settle on anything. We had time. We talked about what kind of parents we wanted to be, about what we wanted our child to know. She said she wanted them to know love did not always arrive when you expect it. Sometimes it takes the long way. One evening, as we sat on the porch watching the sky fade, she leaned into me and said, "I used to think my life ended when Gavin died." Her voice was calm, honest. Now I see it didn't end. It changed. I did not feel threatened by his name. I never had. He was part of her story. He always would be. Loving her meant honoring that, not competing with it. Our wedding had been small, simple. No big speeches, no crowd, just people who mattered. When we stood together in the backyard, the sun low and warm, I felt something settle inside me. Not excitement, not nerves, just peace. After, we rented a small cabin for a weekend. No phones, no plans. We cooked together, read, slept in. One night, lying on the couch, her head on my chest, she whispered, "I never thought I'd get a second chance." I told her the truth. You weren't my second. You were always the one. Now, as the months pass, her body changes slowly. She complains about her back, about how tired she feels. Then she smiles at nothing and says it is worth it. Sometimes I catch her standing in the doorway of the painted room, just looking, her hand on her stomach, her eyes soft. We still talk about the past, not in pain, in understanding. We talk about college, about missed timing, about how close we were to never finding our way back to each other. It still amazes me how fragile that path was. How easily it could have gone another way. When I think back to who I was back then, the nervous guy leaving notes on a desk, I wish I could tell him something. I wish I could tell him to be patient. That love does not always answer right away. Sometimes it waits until you are ready to give without asking. This story did not begin with romance. It began with loss, with grief, with two people standing in the quiet aftermath of something broken. But what grew from that space was not guilt or replacement. It was choice. It was showing up. Again and again. Some nights, when the house is quiet, Mara will reach for my hand in the dark. Not because she is scared, just because she wants to know I am there. I squeeze her hand back. Always. Soon, this house will sound different. Louder. Messier. Full of something new. And when that happens, I know there will be moments when it feels overwhelming. Moments when we are tired. Moments when fear creeps in. But I also know this. Love does not always come the way people expect. Sometimes it comes quietly, after the worst moment of your life. Sometimes it shows up at a funeral. Sometimes it starts with one simple request: don't leave yet. And I am glad I didn't.